Welcome back, everybody. Today you're in for another special treat. We have Kerrang magazine. This one is issue number 5 from November of 1981. We're going to go through this magazine, beautiful magazine, this big, beautiful magazine from the 80s, early 80s, from Kerrang magazine, featuring the legendary SAXON on the cover. Look at that. Look at this magazine cover. Look at all those bands. These are the bands that were big in 1981. All right, real quick before we begin, we're going to go page by page. Just simply click subscribe, hit that notification bell. Any questions, comments, or feedback or requests, simply leave them below. I'm Tony, you're here at KGTR. And lastly, I'm just going to go page by page. We're going to goof on stuff, comment on stuff, on the bands, fashion, whatever. But if there's any particular article or interview that piques your interest that you want me to delve into, I can do that in another video where we can just basically read the interview or article out aloud and share it with you. Again, you can find these magazines on eBay, and you should be able to, but you may pay a pretty penny. You may get them for dirt cheap. So most of these magazines that I'm sharing with you, you can find on eBay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. This is Kerrang issue number 5, November 1981. Kerrang, look at Kerrang, look. There's SAXON on the cover. Look, we got SAXON, we got Rush, Priest. They don't call it Judas Priest, they call it Priest. Now remember that, the Priest. Remember in high school, hey, you ready to go see Priest? And that was, you know, that meant Judas Priest. Maiden, you didn't say Iron Maiden, you went to go say, you saw Maiden. Budgie, I never heard of Budgie. Ozzy, you didn't say Ozzy Osbourne, you would just say Ozzy, right? REO Speedwagon was not heavy metal, but they had a big album, High Infidelity, probably their biggest album of all time for REO Speedwagon. And I love REO. At least I love that album, High Infidelity. Guitar player was awesome. The production of that album was incredible, but the guitar playing was that album is great. Put it on headphones, it's great. Check out REO Speedwagon, High Infidelity. We got Hagar. See, they didn't say Sammy Hagar, they say Hagar. Just like you didn't say Van Halen, you just say Halen. You didn't say George Lynch, you would say Lynch. See how it works? You don't say Tony Fuentes, you just say Fuentes. You ready to go see and hang out with Fuentes? You know it's me. That's how it works. Tigers, Billy Squier, Frank Marino, Stevie Nicks. Now, obviously, these are not heavy metal bands, but for whatever reason, Kerrang wanted to feature them. Yesterday and Today, Rock Goddess, and 50 heavy metal movie LPs to be won. 50 heavy metal movie LPs, records, to be won. So I'm curious to see what these heavy metal movie LPs are. So then maybe there's movies out there that have soundtracks. We're going to open her up and see what's in it. All right, let's go ahead and begin. All right, letters to the editor. Most magazines do. The Cream, Circus, Hip Raider, and now Kerrang. So I'm not going to read these to you, but obviously, again, we're going page by page. And if something piques your interest, hey, Tony, I want that interview, I'll be more than happy to upload it. Right? Again, more letters to the... look, so this is a very young Sammy Hagar in 1981. I forgot what year he was born. But here he's got to be in his mid-20s. Mid-20s right here. He's going to be in his mid-20s right here. Early mid-20s, Sammy Hagar. Right, Rose Tattoo. I've heard of Rose Tattoo. I never heard a single track from Rose Tattoo. Assault and Battery. But I'm sure if I get motivated to, I would go to YouTube and look them up and see if they were any good. I'm sure they were pretty good, but I just don't remember Rose Tattoo. Again, this magazine was from the UK. Alright, Judas Priest. See how look, before he shaved his head. Remember 1982? This is 81, right? But in 1982, they recorded that famous concert in Memphis, Tennessee, and he shaved his head. It was all leather. That was a great concert. I have that concert. You can find that concert, though, in separate tracks on YouTube. It's under Vivo, so it's all copyrighted. I tried to share it years ago, but it wouldn't let me. But I have it, and I'm sure you've seen it. It was on MTV, live in Memphis. Awesome, brilliant show of early vintage Judas Priest playing all their hits. It was the Screaming for Vengeance tour. Long story short, this is Judas Priest's look in 1981. By 1982, he shaved his head and was really into the leather scene. He looked good, but Judas Priest was on fire in 1981. So there you go. All right, the double album of 1981, Pillar, Double Trouble. I never heard of Double Trouble, but it's a double album of 81. My guess is that they disappeared by 82. Let me know if you heard of Pillar. If I'm saying this right. Pillar, Sillar, Double Trouble. So, all right. Armed and Ready. More new bands to watch out for. More heavy hopefuls on the next pages. So, Rock Goddess. So, this is what makes it fun to go back. If you were lucky enough to make it in 80s metal, you made records and you toured and whatnot. And you're around in 82, 83, 84, and on and on. But if you're lucky just to get one album and you fizzle, you could say, yeah, I was part of the experience. It just didn't work for us. Or you were just really popular in the clubs and that was good enough for you. But here, I never heard of Rock Goddess. Where was Rock Goddess in 82, 83, 84? Obviously, they disappeared. At least, I never heard of them. All right. Palace. P-A-L-L-A-S. There's a band, Armed and Ready. These are new bands that they're trying to get you to be aware of. Palace. Look at this. Marshall's. He's got his heavy metal guitar. He's going like, yeah. Remember back then, heavy metal screams were about to come out. Ah! And then the longer you can hold it and the higher you can sing, you were like, oh my God, this band's awesome. This singer is awesome. Hence, are you ready? Ah! And they scream. Obviously, I can't scream or sing, but back then it was fun. Ah! But look, everybody did that. But you had like the bracelet right there, the studded bracelets. I never wore the bracelets and stuff. But if I had to have a look, it would have been like Rob Halford of 1982. All I had back then was this short haircut back in 82. All my friends had long hair and they wore leather and jeans and stuff like that. I was the goofy nerd type with this haircut, but playing guitar. So I loved it. All right. Mendes Prey. See, these bands never had a chance. First of all, the name sucks. Mendes Prey. What does that mean? Medusa. I think I heard of Medusa on Mike Barney's Heavy Metal Massacre Records or something like that. I think. But Medusa's a popular name. It rings a bell, but I don't remember Medusa. Heavy Pettin. I heard of that name around 82, maybe. But again, these bands never made it. Maybe because they were in the UK, I don't know. Because you had to be in the West Coast. You had to be on the Strip to get signed. That's, if you want to get signed, you're lucky enough. You need to go to the West Coast and pay your dues and play all the clubs and pound the pavement and pass out those posters and, compete and get the crowd in and then get the agents in, the record companies in to hopefully sign you and notice you. But I never heard of Mendes Prey, Heavy Pettin, Medusa. Right, the eagle has landed. Saxon spread their wings. Now, to me, Saxon was too heavy for my liking back in 81. I like Van Halen. I like Judas Priest and Scorpions. That was hard rock heavy metal. Saxon was like Motorhead. And it wasn't melodic. It was just like real fast. Nothing wrong with that looking back. But back then, it wasn't my cup of tea. So I was never into Saxon. I wasn't into Motorhead back in 81. I loved heavy metal, but that was just too heavy for me. So, but what do you think about Saxon? Let me know. Some people still treat heavy metal with a smirk on their faces. But they were really heavy. So I'd have to give it a listen to now in 2025 and look at their early works of 80, 81 to see how good they were. I remember they were just too heavy. Not that I couldn't take it. It was just too fast. It wasn't melodic. It wasn't like, here I am. Rock you like her. It wasn't like that. It was like, just listen to early Saxon. There's Saxon right there. Biff Byford, Saxon. So that's a cool poster right there. Look, I always wanted this bracelet. I always wanted that type of bracelet. But how goofy would I look now? Almost 60, wearing that type of bracelet playing guitar. Maybe it would look cool on me, but who knows? I couldn't do it now. Alright, look, these are the band members of Saxon. Paul Quinn, Pete Gill, Steve Dawson, and Graham Oliver. Never heard of any of these guys, but if you're a Saxon fan I'm sure you have some good things to say about them. All right, look, The Rods. The Rods, only $3.99. So you can buy this album for $3.99. Remember the last issue with Michael Schenker? They had the heavy metal album, right? For $5.49, something like that. This is The Rods. So they're going to sell you this record at the HMV shop for just $3.99. I don't know if that's $3.99 in pounds or bucks, but that's about right for back then. All right, look at Frank Marino. Underrated. This guy was good. Very good. Very good in the 70s. For me, I didn't hear too much of him until I got older. And then I appreciated him what he did earlier. I just wasn't exposed to Frank Marino because I was into the Beatles or Kiss or Van Halen or Peter Frampton or Aerosmith. I just wasn't into, or I wasn't exposed too much to Frank Marino. Not knocking Frank Marino, because looking back, he's very good. And so I missed out when I was younger. But I appreciate him now, older, that this guy was a great talent, Frank Marino. So check out Frank Marino, look him up online. Everything's online now. Everything's on YouTube. There's Frank Marino guitar lessons, Frank Marino footage, and Frank Marino music. So check it out. All right, Frank Talks. If you want to know about Frank Marino back in 1981, I'll be happy to read that with you. All right, look at this. Iron Maiden with new singer Bruce Center. So, by 1981, late 1981, this was the real improved, heavy, no holds barred Iron Maiden. Bruce Dickinson made Iron Maiden the heavy metal band that it was. I'm not saying he was Iron Maiden, but his vocals and the songwriting made him more commercial, but it made Iron Maiden more mainstream, and they sold a lot more shows. And they were good. They were really good. And I got some great videos on YouTube, on MTV, and Run for the Hills and all this stuff. He has some good pipes. Not knocking the other singer, but sometimes it takes a band to get a new singer to explode, like Journey. They had an okay singer before Steve Perry. Steve Perry came in, boom, they blew up. Same with Iron Maiden, they blew up after Bruce Dickinson. You're all telling me, how do you know? Because I was there. I was there, bitch. All right, look, behind the Iron Maiden curtain, all right? Obviously, look, there's 2 pages. I had to tear it up so I can scan each one. I'm not messing up my original. So my original is intact, and like this, see, all intact. But for the sake of scanning, I had to break it up. So here's an article on Iron Maiden, Behind the Curtain. Y&T, Y&T, Dave Meniketti. I've been on the Y&T kick now for the past 4 or 5 weeks. I have all their albums, but I'm enjoying their earlier stuff. At times he reminds me of Sammy Hagar singing, but Dave Meniketti can sing, and he's got some wonderful guitar licks and technique and playing style, all his own. So you gotta check out Dave Meniketti with Y&T. The band is heavy. They're good. They have a lot of catchy hooks. They're really good. Yesterday and Today, short for Y&T. Y&T is good. You can check out Y&T. I think I have their entire catalog now. Look, Sammy Hagar, the new single, Heavy Metal, on Epic Records. His 7-inch is picture. I don't know what that is. Oh, Epic 7-inch. 7-inch? In picture bag. Special 3-track 12-inch in picture bag, also available. Whatever that is. So, Sammy Hagar, the new single, Heavy Metal. So check out, go on YouTube, type in Sammy Hagar, Heavy Metal, and you can hear what that new single sounded like in 1981. Remember, this is before 1, 2, 3 Lockbox, before all that crap, and before I Can Drive 55. So, this is 1981. Who would have thought if you would have told him, hey, Sammy, you know how big Van Halen is right now, right? Yeah. In 3 years, 4 years, you're going to be in Van Halen. Can you imagine if you can tell them what the future holds? Oh, you can go back in time and tell them, hey, hang tight, you're going to be for Van Halen. What? You know, that'd be cool. All right, Holocaust live from the Raw Loud Live Tour. So that's a horrible name, Holocaust. But there was a heavy metal band called Holocaust. All right, Mom, I'll be back. Where are you going? Let me go see a concert. What are you going to go see? Holocaust. That sounds bad, the Holocaust. Oh, look at this. This guitar was very popular back in the early 80s. Remember, the Super Strat? The only person that had Super Strat so far was Eddie Van Halen. And that was 1981. You had those little Super Strats. You had the Frankenstrat already by 1980. And you had the Bumblebee by 79 and the Black and White by 78. But Explorers and Les Pauls were the go-to guitars in the early 80s. It was until 1983 you started seeing the explosion of the Super Strats with Kramer and Charvel and then Ibanez and then all these knockoffs. But Charvel and Kramer and then later Grover Jackson started having more awesome 80s metal guitars. Then BC Rich. I love the BC Rich. Tony, what's this got to do with Sammy Hagar? Nothing, but look at this guitar. This guitar was awesome. Look, he lost his little black knob right here. The black knob, toggle switch. There should be a little knob switch here. So he lost it. All right, look, Rush. This is from a poster. Look, there it is. That would have been a nice poster, but I had to break it up. Look at this. The Marshall Stack. Alex Lifeson with his beautiful, what's that, E335? Or 335? Some type of Gibson, right? That's a Gibson. It looks like a Gibson. Could be something else. Who knows? There's Geddy Lee. Alright. Closer to the Heart. A Rush discography by John Gill. So Neil Peart, Alex Lifeson. These are the albums to date, I believe. Up until 1981. They didn't hit it big until Moving Pictures, A Modern Day Warrior. So Moving Pictures, I believe, was like their biggest selling album. And it was everywhere on MTV and on the radio. Right? These albums were good right here. Yeah, I can't think of these hits right now. I just remember Moving Pictures was huge. Alright, Strictly for Connoisseurs. They're pushing bands called Pavlov's Dog, Alice Cooper, Michigan Rocks. These are the bands to watch out for. The Runaways. They're pretty good. And the Stooges. They're, I think, a punk band, I think. Classic Corpses from the Heavy Metal Morgue, exhumed by Dr. Sandy Robertson. I like that, exhumed from the morgue. Right, we're almost done with this issue. I'm not trying to be a Richie Blackmore, but I know what I want. Jimmy Bain gives the scam on the Wild Horses Sage to Pete Makowski, picks by Ben Costello. That name sounds familiar. I think he took a lot of photographs of Kiss. I just remember that name. Alright, I'm not trying to be Richie Blackmore. So someone out there is comparing him to Richie Blackmore. Maybe it's the look. Maybe it's the stage presence. But look at Wild Horses right there. Oh, look, you're trying to be like Richie Blackmore. Now look, this is before the leather and the makeup, right? This is a heavy metal band. Look, they're wearing jeans. They're not wearing leather. This guy is, but they're not a leather band, right? They're wearing jeans and just regular street clothes. But they're heavy metal. Other bands started teasing up their hair, putting on makeup and eyeliner, blush and makeup and so forth. So there's something to consider how bands were dressing. This is 1981, the end of 81. Alright, look at Billy Squier. The Gibson Les Paul. Just regular street clothes, right? That's what they were wearing. Either you wore tight leather jean or leather pants with a regular shirt, or you were wearing jeans, and that's okay because you're just playing rock and roll, heavy metal, and having fun. Look, Tigers of Pantang. I never heard of this band, but look, they're obviously playing somewhere. Now this could be just a studio shot for a record. Who knows? But you should check this out. Look them up. Look up Tigers of Pantang on YouTube. Maybe see what you can find. All right, who's this? Let's see who this is. REO Speedwagon. So I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is of REO Speedwagon. And I don't know who that is. But there's REO. There's Kevin Cronin. Higher Fidelity was this incredible album. Greg Lake of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, I believe. Album released October on Chrysalis Records, 1981. Greg Lake. Alright, Stevie Nicks. She was probably doing her hits before Fast Times at Ridgemont High. because some of her songs ended up on that soundtrack. But Stevie Nicks, one of the rare successful rock singers. She wasn't like rock, like Heart or Pat Benatar. I don't know what genre she's in, but she was great for the 70s and 80s, and she had several big hits. I can't remember the names, but anyway, she has some. Stevie Nicks has a bunch of hits, with Fleetwood Mac and then going solo. So check her out. Bella Stevie, okay. Look, Stevie Nicks, alrighty. Is this it? No, it's not. Okay, we're almost there. More on Stevie Nicks right there. Caro's Word by Sue Buckley, little crossword. Atomic Rooster, new single, played again, 7-inch and 12-inch record. Kerrang t-shirts. If you wanted to buy a Kerrang t-shirt back in the day, it would only cost you $2.95, including postage and handling. Alright, 50 heavy metal albums, double albums to be won. So they don't tell you what they are, but here's the album Heavy Metal. So I guess if you basically sign in, put your name, address, and phone number, whatever, mail it in, you can win 50 heavy metal double albums. So if there are double albums of heavy metal releases, you would win them. One lucky winner. Alright, Riot. Mark Roulet, or Real rather. The name sounds familiar, but it's too close to Quiet Riot. Riot and Quiet Riot. So they were obviously trying to capitalize on Quiet Riot, because quiet means shh, and riot means loud. They didn't say Loud Riot. That would have been too obvious. They just called themselves Riot. I never heard Riot. I've heard the name, the band name, I just never heard their music. Alright, you want to buy some jewelry here? Look at this. Free inside every copy of HM A through Z, this life-size cutout guitar. Alright, more paraphernalia? More merchandise. Paraphernalia. Alright, compiled. Tokyo Tape Scorpions, and this is pretty much like favorite lists of bands and songs right here. We're almost done with this issue. By Kerrangers, a selection of your own top 10s. So this goes with this. So this was the left side of the magazine, that was the right side. And then certain readers submitted their top 10 bands, albums, or songs right here. Want a free Kerrang badge? Again, just mail your phone number, address, and so on. Boom. Alright, this is the back cover. Look at this. Isn't that cool? Look at the little Ozzy. I always wondered who this little kid was. A model, his grandson. I don't know who this is, but it's like a little miniature Ozzy. Isn't that cute? Alright, so Ozzy and son. So he used his little son. If that's his son. That could be his son. This could be what? 3 years old? 4 years old? Alright, so here's little Ozzy Osbourne. His get up. Upside down cross. And again, I only heard of Crazy Train. This is Blizzard of Oz. This is Blizzard of Oz right here. Right? Or Diary of a Madman. I can't tell what this cover's from. I can't tell. Diary of a Madman or Blizzard of Oz. Long story short, this album was awesome. Crazy Train, who knows? Alright, so what do you think of issue number 5, released November of 1981 with SAXON on the cover? Alright, that was Kerrang, taking you back to 1981. I still have some several magazines to share with you. If you like this series, just give me a thumbs up, click subscribe, hit that notification bell. And again, just any questions, comments, or feedback, or requests, leave them below, and I'll be happy to address them. Alright, thanks for joining me. I'm Tony here at KGTR. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.